The Dogs rekindle some 2016 spirit in a heartbreaker for the Lions. Plus, have the Cats found their missing piece ahead of a juicy prelim against the Demons? All that and more to come from the final so far, brought to you by AAMI. But Kane Collins, 1 point separated the Dogs and the Lions for a spot in the top four. And tonight it was 1 point separating them for a spot in the final four.
One of the best finals we have ever seen. There's a free kick late in the game. Didn't Tim English lift after half-time? Vandermeer gets the rush point, did the right thing. And then it was over to this, so the ball came back out. Brisbane had their opportunity late, but just weren't good enough in the end as Dane Zorko kicks another one out on the full. But so many tense moments. We'll go through it here, and these are the scenes after the game. Once again, the Western Bulldogs have been around Australia and they hang on and keep their season alive. They'll go the long way to come back and play Port Adelaide next Saturday night.
So they fly to Perth tomorrow. They'll spend most of the week in Perth in hard quarantine. And then from there, they'll fly to Adelaide to play the Power before that game at Adelaide Oval next Saturday night. It is shaping up as a massive game for a spot in the grand final. Let's go to the last quarter moments. The Lions led it by 10 points at three-quarter time. Dogs have been in hard quarantine all week, but they kicked the first 3 goals to hit the front in the final term.
Yeah, so didn't they just storm home? I mean, their running power, and we'll get to Bailey Smith in a moment. Josh Shackey kicks this one here. He had a couple of nice moments after some shaky ones earlier on in the game. Bailey Smith's running power was just extraordinary. He was the best man on the ground. In the last quarter, he had 9 disposals, 2 goals, finished with 27 and 3. And these ones could have gone either way. That's McCluggage, by the barest of margins, goes out in the full. When you lose by a point, that hurts. Was that man in front to McInerney, or was it Bontempelli's? The umpire paid it to the Bont. The umpires had their say in this game as well. There was no doubt some questionable umpiring decisions, including that one from Caleb Daniel. Lockie Neal had the curl too severe there. And then, once again, Brisbane missed through Zorko when that just needed to be a point to probably send it to extra time. So they had their opportunities, Mitch. Plus 14 inside 50s. You see this free kick off the ball when Brisbane were about to send it back in. And there was just so many heart-stopping moments.
That was a massive moment. Lincoln McCarthy giving that free kick up off the ball, goes down the other end. Bailey Smith kicks the goal, puts the Dogs a goal up. He tells the fans, I've got ice in my veins. Goes the other end, Kane. Zach Bailey, he's been in the middle of so many clutch moments this year, equals the scores. And then from there, we know what happens. Latham Vandermeer puts the Dogs back in front.
Yeah, he's a gun. But as I said, Brisbane out in straight sets, they will rue those missed opportunities. Plus 14 inside 50s. They looked unstoppable at one stage there. Charlie Cameron looked like he was really going to get a hold of them. Taylor Giray was moved onto him after he had the better of Easton Wood. He did a great job, including a big one-on-one late in the game to force the ball out of bounds. They made some good changes. Tim English spent some more time in the ruck. Amazing that Luke Beveridge hasn't had the confidence for him to do that, but Luke Beveridge lauded his performance in the second half. But their defence was extraordinary to stand up like they did and defend as strongly as what they did. And they'll go over to Adelaide with a reasonable amount of confidence.
We spoke at halftime about the Lions' first half pressure, their tackling efforts around the ball. This is what the Dogs produced, though, in the last quarter.
Yeah, I thought the Lions' tackling tonight was as good as I've seen from any team this year. But then they just dug in there. I mean, missed tackle there, but then the next one comes and Treloar gets him holding the ball, and all of a sudden you've got a turnover in your front half. So no doubt that was a big shift, seeing Hunter there, coughing the ball up once again, free kick against. No doubt they got back to that real tough, aggressive, defensive game style that suits them so well. They're always going to be strong around the football. I mean, look at the names they've got in there. McRae was extraordinary again. He had 39 and 11 clearances. Bontempelli had plenty of it. We've spoken about Smith. Still think they need a lot more out of Adam Treloar, who's really low on confidence tonight. But when Tim English can provide a contest in the ruck, their midfield is so strong that it doesn't really matter what the hit-out count says. They're good enough to get the ball going their way and dominate time in forward half.
We must add the Lions were down to one less rotation in the last half, or much of it, given Jack Payne copped a big head knock, and then Jared Berry was taken off the ground with a head knock of his own. It is, though, becoming a bit of a damning record for the Lions when it comes to their finals record. Kane, 3 consecutive years top 4 finish, and 3 consecutive years they've failed to make a grand final.
Yeah, it's poor and no excuses. I mean, last year they had home ground advantage basically for the whole year. Tonight, they're one of the few teams that gets the home ground advantage in a final. You've got 35, 40,000. They're absolutely going bananas, the crowd behind them. They started so strongly. They just didn't get enough out of Joe Danaher tonight. I mean, his finals record this year is going to be a real issue for them. He just could not get any separation from Keith and have an influence. And when you don't have Hipwood and you don't have McStay, you really are relying too heavily on Charlie Cameron and Zach Bailey, the smalls, to kick you a winning score, which they weren't able to do.
The big talking point this week is going to be the fitness of a couple of dogs. Cody Waitman copped this head knock in the second term. Kane, Luke Beveridge saying post-game unlikely. And then the big one is going to be Marcus Bontempelli and his knee knock. He finished the game off the ground.
Never a great sign when you can't come back on. So Luke Beveridge said after the game that he was really sore and that he will have scans, but clearly they're still a bit in the dark about what those scans will say, but you can see the grimacing there. It's not a good sign. And this is where the Bulldogs will eventually kill themselves with the way that they finish the season. I mean, they should be on the back of a home final, week off. You don't have injuries to Bontempelli and Waitman. You don't have to go to Tassie, to Brisbane, to Perth, to Adelaide. So in the end, I mean, Port Adelaide is sitting back going, well, this is exactly the semi-final that we would have wanted to see. And it's hard to see how they get up if Bontempelli can't take his place next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough watch and a big story to follow during the week. Time to get to our AAMI clangers before we head back to Friday night's game. Kane, this is a pivotal moment in the game. Cats up by 20 points midway through the third quarter. Max Holmes doesn't fall his way. He's had a tough year in front of goals.
That's harder to do than actually kick the goal. So, yeah, he had a rough night. It'll be interesting to see whether he holds his place or not, but I did feel sorry for him in the moment.
So we've gone back.
This is a goal umpire clanger. This is 2003 Prelim final against Collingwood. Treadray kicks a goal. We'll have another look at this. That's a goal. The ball is not completely over the line, goal umpire. We would have got off to a better start and perhaps would have won that game, Mitch.
Big Warren probably should have put it 4 tiers back earlier than that. Now, this is crazy. You don't see this all too often now. Ben Hart, the great Ben Hart on the line. Alistair Lynch just having a moment here. There's some great goal line moments in finals history. He puts it through. And then Michael Quinn, the Irishman, tough night for Essendon all those years ago at Footy Park on this occasion.
Yeah, Essendon, from memory, had some real rough finals nights at the old Footy Park, but poor old Michael Quinn just couldn't get it done from the goal line, and Matthew Knights is mortified. Yeah,
not the way he wanted to start his second year in charge at the Bombers. Back to Friday night, though. Joel Selwood celebrates game 333 with a win, breaking the Cats' all-time games record. And the Cats now 12 preliminary finals in the last 18 years, and it seems like they took a few more risks against the Giants.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight this. Absolutely. They were shut down the week before against Port Adelaide. They couldn't get any ball movement. I definitely thought there was an intention to, take a little bit more of a risk through the middle of the ground and not kick it long down the line like they did to Aaliyah the week before. And that's what your forwards love. I mean, Gary Rowan gets on the end of that one for a walking goal. He didn't get near it the week before. There was no doubt when the forwards, Cameron and Hawkins, came up the ground and they got on the end of a lead-up mark, they were quick to dish the ball off and get that ball movement quicker, which they're going to need next week. I mean, Melbourne, the best team in the competition, it's shutting down the opposition's ball movement. So, occasionally they're going to make a mistake and they may get scored against. But if they want to have any hope of not just kicking it long down the line to Lever and May next week, they're going to have to do exactly what they did on Friday night against the Giants.
Last week, the Cats scored from less than 40% of their inside 50 entries. This week, it was on 60%. So a big shift for the Cats. So much of the Giants game is built off their stoppage work, Kane. We've gone to the numbers. When they scored 22 points or less this year from stoppages, as they did against the Cats, they're 1-7 in those games.
Yeah, and on Friday night, they were smashed 55-22 from stoppage, and there's the result. I mean, we know that is their real strength with the names around there. I thought they did get back to that. Callum Ward kicked that stoppage goal late, and they made it really interesting in the early stages of the last quarter, and you thought, oh, well, here we go, surely not. But they just weren't strong enough around the footy, and Geelong were able to get a hold of them, as we're seeing here. And this is just too easy. Do we not know in the second final of the season that Tom Hawkins is a good forward 50 ruckman? Like, how can you not scout against that? How can you have free rein to a wingman like that, uncontested in the ruck? Where's the actual ruckman for a start, and how you can let Tom Hawkins do that? So Melbourne are the most disciplined and most well-drilled side in the comp. they're not getting easy goals like that kicked against them next week.
Tom Hawkins has produced that, plus 5 goals of his own. A big turnaround from last time he played against Sam Taylor. Taylor took 10 intercept marks that night, gave Hawkins a bath, but this looks different on the vision from behind the goals.
It's the lesson of an absolute professional. So you're beaten, you go back, you study the film. What didn't I do well and what do I need to do? But he was so proactive. Look at these clips we're showing him. We'll get a closer look at it. That's that mark there on replay from a close angle. His footwork, he's always on the move. He doesn't let Taylor body him up and get any side of where he is going to be. So what does Taylor want? I'm going to do the exact opposite. And once again, he's back, he's squaring his hips up, and then he's leading at the footy. Watch here, he gets in behind, gets body contact where he wants him, positions Taylor exactly where he wants, and then bang, how many times has Tom Hawkins done that? So Taylor's the best one-on-one player in the competition, not the best defender, the best one-on-one defender. It's different with May and Lever. They're more your interceptors, but that was an extraordinary performance from Tom Hawkins. 12 score involvements, 5 goals, and far and away the best player on the ground.
You mentioned Aaliyah last week. He set up the win for the Power against the Cats. It forced them a rethink at the selection table. They brought Asava Radaglia back into the team. And these are the numbers with him or without him in the team. 12-2 with Radaglia in the team, Kane. And he hasn't played too many games this year as the third forward. Most of those wins you see there of the 12 have either been as the number 1 ruck or the second forward when Cameron missed.
Yeah, it's amazing that a 5-possession performance can be so important. It was extraordinary for me that they didn't play him on the back of last time Geelong played Port Adelaide and the forward line really worked. So you get 10 goals out of Cameron, Rowan, Hawkins and Radaglia. I mean, they get 10 goals again against Melbourne next Friday night, they probably win. So he plays, he keeps a good defender accountable. It gives them more options. It means that, you can do some tricks. You can play Blixarves or Stanley on the wing and Radaglia can do the centre bounce and then go forward. It just gives Chris Scott far more flexibility in his lineup, and they just look a much better forward line when he's in it. And Hawkins and Cameron were the beneficiaries of that on Friday.
Zach Tui was back with a bang. He's our final star here on the round so far. Kane, 31 disposals. He fitted in seamlessly after that hamstring injury and taking the spot of Mark O'Connor at half-back.
So this is what I'd be saying if I was Chris Scott to the team this week. We had them 44 points up, Melbourne, in round 23. We didn't have Duncan. We didn't have Tui. Dangerfield didn't touch the footy in the last quarter and spent 16 minutes on the bench. Selwood spent 11 minutes on the bench, and we had them 44 points up. So this is bonus type stuff. I think they go in with an air of confidence about them. The Cats and the travel situation is more favourable for them. So he's just such an important player. Speaking of versatility, I mean, he can go. He looked great across half-back, but he can go wing. He can go forward if you need to, and you can play a few more games with Duncan and him. And he gives you that bit of zip on. They look really pedestrian against Port Adelaide the week before. He opens it up and gives them a bit more options with their ball movement as well.
Brandon Parfitt will miss with his hamstring. Quinton Narkle in frame to come back in. Or do they throw Mitch Duncan more into the midfield and look at a Sam Simpson across half forward? That's what the Cats will have to consider. As for the Giants, they head to the off-season. Kane, Stephen Coniglio still got 5 years left on his contract. Is he captain next year?
No, he's not. He can't be, because you can't have the captain wondering whether he's going to get a game each and every week. And unfortunately, that's been the situation for Stephen Coniglio for 2 years. He just looks, unfortunately, nowhere near the player that we know he has been prior to that 7-year deal. 14 touches, playing in the midfield, 7 kicks, and he just looks bereft of all confidence, and it was the same the week before. So he can't be captain, but it's more, what do you do about that 5-year deal? Is there a club like a Fremantle willing to pick that up and the Giants pay some of it? Because it is a rather large elephant in the room that they're going to have to deal with a bit awkwardly, like they tried to last year, but this isn't going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, let's see how it plays on the way into the off-season. Here's how it shapes up for next week's preliminary finals. Of the 2 semi-final winners, Kane, who do you think's more of a chance of causing an upset?
Probably Geelong for me. Just for the Western Bulldogs, particularly how far they've travelled and how injured they are, and their ruck situation would be concerning for me. So I think Geelong, with their season group, going with a lot of confidence. But I mean, I could be wrong, but I can't see there's a way that Melbourne and Port Adelaide don't progress to what will be an extraordinary grand final.
To add one more thing, the Cats know all too well about Shane Mumford, played there at the start of his career before winning a flag at Sydney. This is Tom Hawkins speaking about a nasty corky post-match on Channel 7.
Nigel Lappin told me during the week, he said, watch out for Mummy when he sits off the contest. He runs in for that knee and wants blood. So he got me right smack bang in the corky. I was expecting it, but couldn't do anything about it.
Now, these scenes post-game, you would think it's retirement, Kane, but they haven't officially put a line through Shane Mumford's name yet.
I reckon they should convince him to go again. It's one of the more remarkable football stories I've ever seen. Has anyone squeezed a lemon out of everything they've got than Shane Mumford? I love players that absolutely maximise everything that they've got, and they're a better team when he plays. So, look, clearly he's important to the group. I'd be trying to have the conversation. Can we get you to play 10 to 12 games next year, be a ruck coach, transition that way, use your salary through the salary cap and not the soft cap?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the type of discussion I'd be having with him. If he doesn't play and he gets injured, well, you haven't really lost it much at all. You've got another coach. So, I think they're the discussions that the Giants will have clearly this offseason.
Giants are heading home. We'll see you same time, same place here on the round so far. Kane, we've got some prelim finals to talk about.
One to go. Mitch, look forward to it.
See you then.